The amount of moisture that you receive depends on a lot of physical characteristics. For example, if you look at about 30 degrees north and south latitude, that's 30 degrees above the equator and 30 degrees below the equator. Does anybody know what kind of biome you'll find no matter where you are? Deserts. Deserts. It's not a golden rule necessarily, but if you look at that latitude, you will see bands of desert landscapes scattered across multiple continents. The reason for that has to do with the flow of energy around the equator. Mountains create barriers to moisture. Do you ever wonder why states like Michigan and Ohio have got the Great Lakes, and the only lakes we get here in Kentucky are lakes like Lake Cumberland, which are caused by putting a dam across a river? Has to do with glaciation during the Ice Age. We never had glaciers get this far south and carve out deep pits for lakes. Pretty wild, isn't it? So everybody see where I'm going with this? Those two factors alone determine what can live in a given area. We call the variation in temperature and precipitation by a very technical term. Does anybody know that term? It is called weather. Weather. The weather is simply the average short-term physical conditions. Average short-term physical conditions. This morning when I got up extra early, my house was a little bit cooler than even I was comfortable with. It was about 66 degrees in there. I still left the air conditioner on because right now it is well warmer than I am comfortable with, even in here. That's varied according to the day, hasn't it? So the day-night cycle plays a role in this. This is why we consider it to be average. We look at average daily temperatures, average nightly temperatures. Does anybody know what other cycle impacts?
Daylight savings.
No, not day and night. Think a little longer. Seasons. Here in Kentucky, we are fortunate enough to experience all 4 seasons as distinct phases of weather. Am I right? Sometimes we're even fortunate enough to get all 4 of them in a single day. That goes back to distance from the equator and the amount of solar energy received. The amount of solar energy received. So what's the difference between weather and climate?
Weather changes and climate is consistent.
Close. Basically, time. Climate, you could say, is just average long-term weather conditions. Average long-term weather conditions. you can get considerable annual variation. But if you look over time, consistency is the key. Do y'all want me to get a little controversial here? Okay. True or false? Global warming is an unequivocal fact. Who wants to tackle that one?
Can you specify what you mean by that?
I mean that the average global temperature has been doing this number, going up. It is an absolute, unequivocal, documented fact that is correct. Now, what's causing it? That is a minefield of epic proportions. All we can say with certainty is that over the last century or century and a half, the average recorded annual global temperature has increased. What does that mean? What is the cause of it? What should be done about it, if anything? Those are questions that will not receive answers because they are too much of a political radioactive football to touch. Science and politics rarely mix well. Some say it is a natural perturbation in the Earth's orbit, that the Earth periodically goes through periods of warming and cooling, and this is nothing more than that. Some people say it is a runaway global greenhouse effect due to us burning fossil fuels and we're all doomed to die. Some people say it's middle of the road. And in all honesty, the problem with determining what it means comes from the fact that the only way we can make predictions is using models. Models are built on observed trends in data. For example, I don't think I would be going out too far on a limb if I were to say that at least once during the period of time between, let's say, December 1st of 2026 and March 31st of 2027, this campus will be covered in snow. That's not really a bad prediction, is it? It's not really a useful one either. Gee, you're saying we might get snow in southern Kentucky sometime during the months of winter? Wow. And in other news, rain is wet. That is a very generic model, isn't it? It doesn't require on a lot of variables. It has very broad parameters. So you say, well, let's tighten it up and let's say that we will get 3 specific days of snowfall to the point where it will result in classes being canceled on at least one of the multiple campuses in the service area of Somerset Community College. That's a lot tighter, isn't it? Is it any more useful? It still doesn't make a prediction on the days, does it? This is because weather is inherently what we call a dynamical system. D-Y-N-A-M-I-C-A-L. Dynamical. Not dynamic, dynamical. Probably a term you've not heard before, am I right? Do you need me to spell that again? Huh?
Yes.
DYNAMICAL. Christian, did you have a question?
Can I ask you to spell it again?
Oh, okay. Did you get it that time?
Yep.
Okay. A dynamical system is one in which small changes in initial conditions can have huge consequences much later. Small changes in initial conditions can have huge consequences much later. If the British soldier during the spring of 1918, who had the young mustachioed Bavarian corporal dead to rights in his sights, had bothered to pull the trigger, how would history have changed? For those of you who wonder what the heck I'm talking about, did you all know that in World War I, a British soldier actually had Hitler in his sights that could have killed him?
Suppose.
If only.
Is it kind of like the butterfly effect?
That is exactly where the term comes from. The butterfly effect is about dynamical systems. It is a very poor illustration of dynamical systems, but the idea of the butterfly effect is that a butterfly flaps its wings in sub-Saharan Africa, and we get a hurricane that devastates New Orleans. Well, the reason hurricanes devastate New Orleans is because they built the city below sea level, and it's surrounded by artificial dams that keep it from flooding, and when those dams get breached, guess what? The water comes in. I really don't have a lot to say about New Orleans. But it means it's really hard to interpret a long-term outcome. Now, we like to tease the weatherman and pick on him all the time. Am I right? About how the weather is not an accurate forecast, blah, blah, blah. But have you all noticed, all joking aside, if you look at the 12-hour forecast or even the 24-hour forecast, it's generally pretty good, isn't it? That is because you can use current conditions to make a fairly accurate prediction in the short term. Period. Weather is inherently a dynamical system, and furthermore, it is constantly changing. Do humans have an impact on that system? Absolutely unquestioned. How big is the impact? How far-reaching? That's pretty darn difficult to guess. True or false, the orbit, or not the orbit, the rotation of the Earth has been altered by building dams. This is a fun one. True. There is a single dam in China that has held back so much water, it has actually changed the rotation of the Earth just a tiny, tiny fraction, but it is measurable. Three Gorges Dam for those of you who are interested.
Does it affect like some life or no? Is it just?
Is it what?
Does it affect anything to us? No.
But it shows you how you can make a big difference without intending to, and that is the biggest factor. The human element comes not from deliberate actions, but from the unforeseen consequences of our actions. Make sure you get that down.
You repeat it.
The human element comes from unforeseen consequences of our actions, not the result of deliberate actions.
But what makes it like do that? Like what makes it change the rotation?
Changes the mass because you are holding back so much water, cubic miles of it, that it weighs so much and it can't. It's not necessarily a good example, but have you ever tried to pick up a big tub of water or a big dish? And you notice how just a little bit of shaking can get a real. And it's hard to get it stop from slopping over, isn't it? You don't want to think that the oceans could be affected that way, but whenever you get a tsunami, that's exactly what's happening. There has been enough of a jiggle in the earth with the earthquake that you literally have got the ocean slopping over the brim. And the last time that happened, we lost 250 million people. 2004 Boxing Day tsunami in Indonesia. 250 million, or 250,000, excuse me.
I was on a cruise when that happened,
Did you get to experience it?
kind of. They tried to distract us because they were moving so much.
Kind of scary, isn't it? We don't want to think of that, but I'm just showing you that's not human activity. But if we are building dams that are so big they could hold back that much water, can you imagine what would happen if the dam failed?
It would destroy a lot of habitat and kill a lot of people or animals.
That actually happened with a dam in Italy. They built this dam in a mountain pass that was very, very, very high up there like this. And they basically built a curtain wall, and they had a landslide that slumped down into the reservoir, and it caused enough water to come over the top of the dam that the weight of the water broke the dam. So you had this massive, massive wall of water that moved down the valley and just wiped out a town or three. I hadn't planned on talking specifics, so I apologize for not being able to tell you exactly which one it was. If you want me to, I'll look it up.
If Lake Cumberland actually did burst, it would probably like destroy like Tennessee, like some of the.
It'll probably like destroy Tennessee. Well,
Not destroy Tennessee, but it would.
having lived in Nashville in May of 2010, when we ended up getting something like 8 inches of rain in less than 24 hours, and the Cumberland River did flood. Yeah, I got to see a building floating down the interstate.
Oh yeah, so it can. Yeah.
And that was just due to localized rainfall. Now imagine if Wolf Creek Dam goes down. There are other dams downstream between here and Nashville. It would not be a pretty sight, would it? And that's just one example. Is that human activity? Absolutely. In the early 90s, there was one particular guy that was cheating on his wife, and he wanted to avoid getting caught, so he actually damaged a levee on the Mississippi River, causing it to fail catastrophically, so it would flood the roads that he couldn't get home. But it had far more of an effect than he realized, and it ended up flooding something like 60 square miles of farmland. Oh yeah, don't worry, they buried him under the jail. Human activity can make a difference. Is human activity causing climate change? Well, when people talk about climate change, they mean global warming. And by global warming, they mean, again, only that the average temperature has inched up over the last century, century and a half. There's no question about the increase. Is it significant? What does it mean? How long will it go on? How much have humans contributed to it? That is where all of the fighting occurs. Do y'all want me to explain this to you and how it came about? Well, it's called the greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect. What's that horrible movie they show every Christmas? The Abominable Snowman or whatever. About that evil snowman that comes to life with a magic hat and chases kids all through the Frosty, yep. Yeah, I know you all might remember differently than I did, but let's say I saw that at probably a younger age than I should have, and it left me traumatized. For me, Frosty was never a nice, cute, heartwarming holiday story. It was a horror story about this snowman that keeps coming back from the dead.
It's that horror movie. I know what you're talking about.
How did they take Frosty out? They locked him in the greenhouse, right? And then he came back for the sequel. Why did the greenhouse melt? Has anybody gone in the greenhouse in winter? It's nice. You can have it below freezing outside, snow on the ground, and if the greenhouse is properly set up, it will be warm enough to be in there in shorts and short sleeves and be comfortable. What is not pleasant is when you get to go in the greenhouse and water all of the plants, not only in the teaching collection, but in all three of the research collections as part of your job taking over for the greenhouse manager when he leaves for the first 2 weeks of August. Yes, I also did that. Our greenhouse manager was a real wit. Yes, ma'am?
Yeah, turn the cool down the slightly.
Sure.
It's just blowing right on me.
Sure. Above the door to the greenhouse, he wrote, "Abandon hope, all ye who enter." I think you all know where that's supposedly inscribed, right? The gates of hell. Because when you stepped in there, it was like walking into a sauna. You physically felt the humidity and the heat. Well, we had a lot of tropical plants and things in there, so we had to keep it up. What causes that? It's because windows are transparent to visible light. We all know that, right? That's how we see out them. But I guarantee you, when you go out and get in your car to drive home this afternoon, if you were to take a temperature reading, it is going to be significantly higher in your car than it is out there in the air. The reason for that visible light hits surfaces inside the vehicle and it bounces off at a longer wavelength. Typically something in the infrared. Now, not all of it is in the infrared. Some of it is still visible. That's why you see colors, right? But those windows that are nice and transparent to visible light are not transparent to IR radiation. That means the heat has been trapped inside. And as long as the sun keeps shining, the heat keeps building. This is why there are laws against leaving small children or animals or both in your vehicle. I know one particular individual who messed up the interior of his car because he accidentally left his keys on the front seat, and when he came back that night, on his headliner across his visor that flips down, it looked like somebody had taken a laser beam and scorched it. You could actually track where the reflection off of that metal had scorched the headliner of his car. So it can get up pretty darn hot. Does everybody see how that works? And you say, well, that is glass. The atmosphere is something else. And you are correct. However, there are certain gases that are not transparent to ultraviolet light. We call those greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases. And there are a lot of them. Some of them reflect more heat back than others. Ironically, water vapor is a pretty good greenhouse gas. Methane, very good greenhouse gas. Cow flatulence adds a lot of it. Cases like, where do you come up with this stuff? I've lived a long time.
Interesting.
But you don't hear anybody griping about either of those, do you? What's the one you hear about all the time? Your carbon footprint, right? Well, what they are referring to is carbon dioxide, CO2. The amount of carbon dioxide present in the atmosphere has been increasing gradually in the last few decades. Now, I want you to understand CO2 concentrations in the atmosphere are typically measured in what we call ppm. Does anybody know what that is? Parts per million. We are not talking a big chunk of the atmosphere. The current average global atmospheric CO2 concentration is approximately 426 parts per million. Doesn't sound too bad, does it? Anybody want to take a guess what it was during America's first birthday, 1776, right before the Industrial Revolution? It was about 280 ppm. So we have seen a significant increase in the global carbon dioxide. So what is the concern about this? Where is all of the extra CO2 coming from? Does anybody know?
From factories?
Factories have played a role. The Industrial Revolution made it easier for us to burn things to get power, didn't it? But humans have been burning things for millennia, not centuries, but millennia, thousands of years, right? Rome didn't have electric lights, folks. Didn't have street lights at all. You had to use a little oil lamp if you wanted to get around. Well, the answer is burning things, yes, but specifically one thing, and that is fossil fuels. As you study ecology, one of the things you learn about are natural cycles. One of those is the carbon cycle, CO2 in the atmosphere gets converted into sugar through photosynthesis. We've seen that before, haven't we? The Calvin cycle, carbon fixation. Living critters, both plants and animals, along with fungi, protists, bacteria, everything, eventually breaks that sugar down and releases it as what? Carbon dioxide. Does everybody see how the cycle turns? Now, there are other sources. You get volcanic eruptions. That adds to the cycle, doesn't it? Do you remember when we talked about diatoms, the little single-celled things that had glass shells? We talked about diatomaceous earth. When those things die and they sink to the bottom of the ocean, they take the carbon with them, don't they? So you see where I'm going with this? This cycle has been going on pretty much as long as there has been oxygen-using life on the earth. Make sure you get that down. And we've talked about the great oxygenation event, somewhere between 2.1 and 2.4 billion. That's a B, not an M, a billion years ago. That's quite a long time, isn't it? And make no mistake, this cycle has been going on pretty much that whole time. It's the natural carbon cycle. So even though we lose some of it by diatom sinking and things like that, we also get some back from geological processes, don't we? Everybody see that? Again, what's the concern? Does anybody want to take a stab at it?
Having too much
We got too much of what?
of carbon dioxide.
Where did we get it? That's what I'm asking. What have we been burning for the last century and a half to get around?
Fossil fuels.
Fossil fuels. You simply can't get around in the United States if you don't have a car. Would y'all agree with that? It's just a necessity. And as a result, the most cost-effective fuel we have found for our vehicles is what?
Fossil fuels.
Gasoline, refined petroleum. Period. There are certain kinds of transportation that honestly you couldn't have unless you had petroleum. Try getting flight without an internal combustion engine of any kind. Turbofans and turboprops have gotten very, very efficient, but you still have to have jet fuel. Did y'all know that jet fuel is basically just kerosene? Kerosene used to be a waste product, getting gasoline. You see where I'm going with this? And additionally, what is the fuel that fueled the Industrial Revolution? You all have got to quit watching TikTok.
Coal?
Huh?
Coal.
Coal. Pound for pound, in terms of large-scale energy production, I don't think there's anything that is more cost-efficient today than coal. Unlike petroleum, where it's getting harder and harder to extract it and transport it where it needs to go. Case in point, we've all seen what's happened to gas prices the last few weeks, right? Here in the United States, even at the craziest usage rates of just known deposits of coal, we probably have, I would say, between 2 and 3 centuries left. It's just quite simply the most cost-efficient fuel out there. If you want to generate electricity and you are doing it strictly on the basis of how much does it cost, what's the best way to go? Coal.
So I know once we run out of like stuff, how will we use like airplanes and such in the future? Like, how would that work?
How will you use?
Like airplanes, 'cause you said like we need like
I don't know. If I could predict the future, I wouldn't be sitting here teaching. I would be investing in the stock market like Bill Gates and becoming one of those evil billionaires that controls the planet. Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering, is nuclear energy maybe more efficient than coal?
Is nuclear energy more efficient than coal? Well, would y'all like me to talk more about alternative energy sources? Nod, drill, or otherwise indicate conscience. How many of you would like that? Okay. New pencil. Got it yesterday. Everybody see the size of that slightly used eraser? Let us assume that I had a chunk of highly enriched uranium. That size of that eraser. The equivalent energy that I have in that little chunk of highly enriched uranium is equivalent to 1 metric ton of high-grade anthracite gold. A metric ton is 1,000 kilograms, so that is 2,205 pounds of coal. Potential? Yes. Difficulty, issues, and problems? Also yes.
Access to it is not as,
Huh?
it's just not as accessible, is that what you're saying?
Well.
Available, maybe?
I hadn't planned on getting into this whole can of worms, but let's see how many of you can get this. And I want everybody to give me an answer one way or the other. I don't want any of this wishy-washiness sitting back there. How many of you think that a nuclear power plant in the civil sector, I'm not talking in the military, but just like down at Watts Bar, how many of you think that a nuclear power plant could explode in the same fashion as an atomic bomb? So raise your hand. How many of you think it couldn't? How many of you don't want to vote? You gotta give it one or the other, folks. That's probably a good thing we're talking about this then. Think of what I said about terms of energy. That's a lot of energy in there. But here's the fact. A commercial nuclear reactor cannot explode like a nuclear bomb, period. Would y'all like to know why? Did you hear me use the term highly enriched? You may have heard that term in the news in the last 2 or 3 days concerning the peace negotiations that have been going on in the Middle East regarding the highly enriched uranium stockpile of Iran. Uranium comes in several different isotopes. There are only 2 that we are going to be concerned about. The first one is uranium-238. That is the natural isotope. The 238 means the atomic mass. You wouldn't want to swallow that. It's not very radioactive. It's not really going to do much. Even if you do swallow it, it's going to act more like a heavy metal poison. That is what makes up the vast majority of uranium. Is everybody clear on that? This stuff, however, is a little bit more exciting. Uranium-235. Y'all ever heard of uranium-235? Yes, sir.
You asked if any of us have ever heard of uranium-235. You asked us if we heard about
Yeah.
this.
This is the highly radioactive stuff. It is very, very dilute in natural uranium ore. You have to concentrate this or enrich it for it to be of any use. The enrichment process is not the easiest thing in the world to do. First of all, you've got to mine the uranium. Then you've got to actually separate the lighter U-235 from the heavier U-238. That process is called enrichment. Anybody know what the first place where uranium enrichment occurred?
Chernobyl? No.
About 90 to 100 miles south of here is a beautiful city. I lived there for a few years in East Tennessee called Oak Ridge. Anybody ever heard of it? Oak Ridge was nothing but a rural farming community like we have in this area until 1942, when General Leslie Groves picked it as the main source for a government project called the Manhattan Project. Do y'all know what that is?
The nuclear bomb.
Building the atomic bomb. The K-25 plant that they built to do the enrichment of the uranium was the largest single area underneath a roof in existence. End to end, this U-shaped building was probably about a mile across. Yeah, back then, when they spent money, they spent money. We're going to have that bomb, dang it. And in the process of about 3 years, they were able to get enough highly enriched uranium-235 to build, guess how many bombs? 1. What they did was they took a 5-inch howitzer barrel, cut it off on each end. On this end, they put half of a sphere of uranium-235. Perfectly polished hemisphere. Over on this end, they put another perfectly polished matching hemisphere. They put a charge of gunpowder behind this one. They put an altimeter on it, and they lobbed it out of an airplane. It fell about 26,000 feet. About 1,500 feet above the target, the gunpowder charge went off, and it slammed that hemisphere down the gun barrel until it came into perfect contact with this one. At that point, it reached what we call critical mass. It has got so much unstable uranium-235 that it cannot hold together. And it literally tore itself apart at the atomic level. And in case you're wondering, that was the city of Hiroshima. That was the first atomic bomb. One bomb went off with the equivalent of about 17,000 to 18,000 tons of TNT. Tons. Big boom, right? Notice all the steps it took to get it to 90% purity. That is what we call either bomb grade or weapons grade. And yes, you need to get that down. Bomb grade or weapons grade. What they use in a nuclear reactor has to be enriched beyond the 0.1% that you get in normal ore. But you don't want it to go up that high, do you? So you get it to about 35 to 40%. That is called fuel grade or reactor grade. I think you all see the problem here, don't you? If you have the technology to enrich it to 40%, you have a perfectly good fuel source for your nuclear reactor, don't you? If you want to use your nuclear reactor to generate power, that's a very good way to do it. You have to stop at 40%.
Probably.
No.
Huh?
Probably.
You can do like we did during the Manhattan Project. You can keep cranking it up until you get 95%. Oh, guess what? We just got ourselves a name. And that's probably the biggest danger in using nuclear power right there. The other thing is that it is extremely radioactive. Early in my career, I was working with a radioactive substance, and I actually got a drop of the liquid spilled onto my jeans. Somewhere in a low-level waste disposal facility, here we are 35 years later, my little square chunk of jeans is sitting in a nuclear waste disposal facility. You can't just throw it in the trash, can you? I actually had somebody that I worked with not clean up after he spilled some of the radioactive workstation, and I got the shoes contaminated. And since he didn't tell anybody, it was a very good thing for everybody that I bothered to check the ground. And where he had been walking up and down the hallway, we literally could take where he had taken a step every single time, because he had left radioactive footprints. Good times.
So were you able to see them, like footprints?
Oh no, they weren't glowing. but
Yeah,
I had a Geiger counter, and it's kind of obvious. And I'm like, okay, guys, I know my shoes are hot, but they're not that hot, and I have not walked all the way down the hall to the main lab. That's when we got Andrew to come out, and we held it up to his shoes, and it sounded like an avalanche that Geiger counter was making so hard. And I was pretty mad because I had some nice shoes. So I asked the guy who came over from institutional safety to clean this mess up what I should do about it. He said, well, there's two things we can do. If we do the official route, your shoes go to the waste disposal facility. And I said, what's the unofficial route? He said, unofficially, you didn't tell me, and if you happen to tie them off into a plastic garbage bag and throw them into the back of the closet in your spare bedroom that you don't use, and you take them out after about 10 weeks and bring them in and check them with a Geiger counter, you're going to find that enough half-lives have passed that they've decayed to background. Otherwise, I would have gotten my $100 worth of shoes out of Andrew one way or the other. Let us just say that Andrew did not complete his academic program successfully, for good reason. And they actually did a pretty smart thing. Instead of trying to clean off the flooring, they got some old pallets and just laid the pallets down and rolled some thick rubber matting over it, and that's what we had for about the next 3 or 4 months. These are people that are trained, supposedly, in Andrew's case. These are people that experienced. But you see what happens when you make a mistake, and this is not high-level gamma source like uranium. This is just garden variety phosphorus-32, half-life of 2 weeks. There wasn't enough radiation when you first ordered it to do enough damage to you and increase your cancer risk. Radioactive waste is the #1 problem with an atomic reactor. Safety is an issue. Safety maintaining the facility, safety building the facility, safety fueling the facility, safety defueling the facility, safely transporting the waste. You get an idea here?
Isn't that more of an issue like Japan puts them on their country? Like Japan, they use them in their country, but it gets so many earthquakes. I would think that would be a bad idea.
Well, as you saw with the 2011 tsunami and the Fukushima reactor getting flooded by the tsunami, yeah, that wasn't a good idea. Case mentioned Chernobyl. Would y'all like to know what happened at Chernobyl? Do y'all know how a nuclear reactor works? Essentially, you lower fuel rods down into a pool of water. They heat the water up and turn it to steam. The steam goes through a series of pipes and turns a turbine. Once you turn a turbine, you can generate electricity, right? Y'all seen those big towers? Those are cooling towers. It sends the steam up through very tiny pipes in those. They radiate the heat out into the atmosphere. It turns the steam back into water. It comes back down through the pipes, and they recirculate it through the reactor. Closed loop. You never have to release radioactive material to the environment. Only thing that you really are out is the initial setup. The only real issue you got is a little bit of hot water coming out of, or hot air coming out of the cooling tower, right? But notice you gotta have a water source nearby, don't you? A lot of water. So you can't necessarily build this into the desert unless you build a reservoir to go with it. You mentioned the problem with Japan. Doesn't get a better water source in the ocean, do you?
Yeah.
As long as the ocean stays in the ocean. When you start playing rock the cradle with the ocean, oh well, you get Fukushima. When you get somebody trying to do a test of the coolant system to make sure it works, and they shut the system down before the test, and therefore they actually run the water in the pool bone dry, well, you don't get cooling, do you? The reactor core got so hot, it literally melted itself. It is a metal, right? Uranium at heart is a metal. It is contained in a steel reactor core. Steel will melt. You have all of this radioactive water under pressure as steam. Y'all ever seen what happens when a pressurized boiler blows? It's not a pretty sight, is it? Basically what happened at Chernobyl, the whole core blew. It literally blew chunks out of the wall, and it sprayed this massive plume of radioactive steam and dust into the air. Then the core, since it was getting no heating or cooling, melted and literally sank through the floor into the basement and melted the concrete. And all of that was super toxic, and it's just spewing radiation everywhere. How many of you want one of these built just down the road?
Maybe. Depends. If it's in a good spot.
But you see the problem, don't you? You ever heard the phrase NIMBY? N-I-M-B-Y? Best place to locate a radioactive waste dump is NIMBY. You know where NIMBY is? Not in my backyard.
It's in a remote area. But
In the late 80s, early 90s, Congress actually got together long enough to designate one facility to receive all of the country's nuclear waste, located in tunnels underneath Yucca Mountain, Nevada. Nevada is already mostly desert, right? We've gone over 100 holes into that desert with various nuclear bombs over the last few decades, testing them out. Pretty cool place. How many people in the Senate do you think voted to make Yucca Mountain the nation's nuclear waste depository? It wasn't quite unanimous, but we got 98 of 100 senators actually voted for it. Any idea what state was represented by the two that voted against it? Nevada. Okay, sounds great. Put it out in the remote side, right? So now we've got to get it there. Let's put all of this hot nuclear waste onto trains and run them from the nuclear reactors in Cincinnati down to Chattanooga on the railroad just over the hill. How many of you have heard that? Don't want them on the railroads? Saying derailments happen? Not that often.
But we can.
But they can, all right, so let's not put them on the railroad. Let's put them on trucks, 18-wheelers. Y'all ever tried to drive down I-75, especially with all that construction south of London? Like nothing. You see the problem? I'm not saying it's good, I'm not saying it's bad, but the point is, every form of energy generation has its downside. Every form. If I was in charge of all of it, I would make nukes out of them. Do you know there's a country on this planet that gets most of their energy from nukes? Never guess who it is. Nope, not China. China's got way too much coal.
Russia.
Huh?
Russia?
Nope. Close.
France?
France. France gets better than 3/4 to 80% of their electricity from nuclear power. Question?
You were saying that like every energy has a downside. So what if we use like wind energy? What would be the downside for that?
Gets the wind blowing all the time.
Yeah, that was-
Plus, y'all want to hear this story? There is a mountain pass out in California where there is a constant stream of wind coming through, and they built a wind farm out there. Turned on the propellers, one making lots of electricity. Clean, environmentally sound, right? Then the seasons changed. What happens when it gets colder? Do all the little birdies stay around here? Where do they go?
the warmer places.
They fly south for the winter to warmer places, right? You had all these nice little birdies flying through this mountain pass, riding this jet stream of wind to get to the warm lands of the south for the sun. And, I think you all, from the way 2 or 3 of you are geeking, I think you all can draw that picture for yourselves.
They also destroy the environment around it. The energy produced makes the earthworms
When
leave.
does, where do you build it? I don't know about you, but I like these nice mountain views we got here, don't you? Let's buy up all the land and put windmills out there. Y'all laugh, but NIMBY, not in my backyard. See you Thursday. There's no.
Didn't you want us to remind you to bring water samples for lab?
Yes, for the lab, don't forget to bring in the water samples from a pond, a puddle, a river, a lake, something other than your tap. Main thing I want to make sure we go.
Bring a water sample for
Thank you for the reminder.
Guess I'm going to Lake on Martin or something. Oh, Wednesday.
And one of the reasons I tell people, dollars are all that matter right now. Think of how many jobs coal has supplied to this area. Continues to supply to this area.
You know what's funny? I actually do have a weird water source like right outside my, it's in my area one. Like it's all like it's a small water thing. I can click that. It has like it holds frogs and such.
There's no perfect solution.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying, like, it's not tap.
Water, even water, has a problem with building dams, the ecological effect of dams. Hopefully, y'all are getting the idea that you have to educate yourself and make decisions. What's more important?
Oh, yeah. To the government's money.
People don't want to pay more in taxes. You need me, Simon?
I was just gonna ask a question.
Ask away.
So earlier when we were talking about, like all the CO2 in the atmosphere and everything, wouldn't it also, like, the higher our population is, like, where we have issues with, like, deforestation and, like, less and less large amounts of plants creating oxygen, wouldn't that also, like, affect the ratio?
But we're deforesting at a increasing rate. We're poisoning the oceans, and that takes out about 60 to 70% of the oxygen production. We've got to make some kind of change, in my opinion. Now, again, I'm just giving an opinion. Or that future generations are hosed. It may already be too late. Seriously, peak oil was when we were supposed to run out of oil. Now, obviously, it's changed since the last time I looked it up, which was 20 years ago. But it was supposed to be in 2070. That was the year we were supposed to completely run out of oil. If I live that long, I'll be 101. I'm like, I am exiting stage left at the perfect time.
Well,
question?
No, I'm going.
Okay.
I think about it this way.
See you.
When I hit that, like, year, I'll be old
See you,
and
Simon.
wrinkly. I'll probably be like, I got my grandkids. And why not? They'll just take care of me.
I just want people to come out aware that there are problems with whatever.
I used to not fast diet. I used to get it like naturally done. But I
If
don't
you
remember
choose
that.
nuclear, there's a cost, and you have to bear that cost, don't you? If you choose coal, there's a cost, and you have to bear that cost, or your grandchildren, somebody. There's nothing perfect. What I hope is that you all come out of this with some understanding of the good and the bad of each. The best approach is probably diversification.
I feel like one day, like, it won't be us. We won't get probably affected, like, as most generations will. But I hope, like, sooner or later they actually start actually like, taking care of the planet. But who knows? People are.
You guys are hosed.
Yeah.
You all. Because technically you could be my grandkids. God, I'm old. My kids were pointing out yesterday that I'm over 3 times their age. They're still in high school.
Yeah.
What do you
And
mean?
I said, I could not just be your parents, I could be your grandma. One of them said, how old are you? And I said, 56. She said, you're actually older than both of my grandparents.
By hose, what do you mean by, like, how we got her away?
You really want me to tell you unvarnished, no holds barred? You want the truth? Can you handle it?
No?
No, that doesn't count. Like I was letting
2
my hair
centuries
grow out
max.
to its natural
Probably
color,
closer to a
but then
century
I
and a half.
realized I couldn't do it because I had so much, and I only have grays like right here, and it like
You can see it.
freezes
It's
my
over.
face, and I was like, I just.
Probably
But I
humanity
thought
as a
they said
species.
it was like a medium brown.
We are incredibly tough and we're incredibly resourceful. But the way we're using resources, the way we are eliminating habitat, the way we are just getting less and less and less connected as a society by becoming more and more and more fragmented as a society. Ironically, the internet, which was supposed to connect the world, has just fragmented it.
Yeah, I was like, no. Because it
I
looks
don't,
really good when
I'm a
it's
pessimist
like,
by nature. And I am a cynic. I don't believe in the good in people. I don't believe that groups of people are anything more than a mob. I don't think democracy is good. I think it's mob rule. But what we have certainly is any better.
But yeah.
But unless we stop doing stupid stuff, everybody who gets into power wants one thing: to hold on to power.
Even though it was so chemically treated.
Other than local, and by local I mean city, maybe the county, and nothing above that. I don't really think, even at a state level, that most politicians actually give a damn.
Yeah,
Not
it
really.
was crazy though, because I
So we'll be like just
left it on for quite a bit.
screwed after 2 decades if you don't fix something.
I think so.
I got the powder bleach.
I hope I'm wrong. I hope
It said 7, it was actually 7.
that the good things I see about your generation are the ones that win out over the bad things.
Well, you see today, like, people are just, like, they hate some of these decisions what the government's doing today. It's just,
People today are a lot more aware of the impact their actions have on others, the good and the bad.
And then I pushed it twice and it was like this one.
I personally don't feel as comfortable with some of the left wing as far as they take it. I'll freely admit I'm an old white conservative male. I'm not going to be too comfortable. But I also try my best to not be totally biased by that. I try to be aware that I do have an inherent built-in bias. But on the other hand, the way you guys are using AI
It's scary.
is beyond scary. If I use AI and I ask it a detailed question about biology, it gets it wrong most of the time.
I've seen recently where, like, there's people that actually decline, like, the offer to make a AI build, like, structure in their land. Like, and I'm glad for that, because that would actually help the environment, not
Or
against it.
because you got the heat generated, you got to get the electricity from somewhere.
You can't even buy food now without them trying to get you to put a whole AI system in it. But you can turn it off, you cannot turn it on.
But you can't
Yeah.
point a finger at the coal industry and say they're all evil, they're all want to plunder Mother Earth. No. People around here want work. They want a job. They want a chance to make their life better and make their life and their family better. And for decades, the coal industry has been the number one pirate. And I can't blame anybody for supporting it. Yeah, the coal industry makes a profit, but if you look at just takeaway cost per kilowatt hour, straight economic forces, I'm not talking any government subsidies or taxes or anything, just straight what's the cheapest to get it out, get it to the generating site, and generate your use and get it out. Number one, by far, coal.
You know what's one thing I really want for the future? I feel like the government should not, like, house, like, older, like, people from past
Yeah, just let us all old folks die.
I
We're
mean,
worthless.
I mean, like, really old people, like, the people that don't know what's going on
They
in the
don't
world.
have health checks.
Yeah.
We don't have what?
Health check, like health checks. They say they do.
I have a
But-
Australian burning.
I feel like
The
we need-
government doesn't.
She's so
No,
People who
exactly.
go in and
You
say
don't go in
there's
as a
this,
good person to be.
people say this is mass conspiracy. It's always, no, there isn't. They don't care.
They do not care at all.
Your life is not interesting enough that they're going to give a damn about it.
People like to be important.
They care about the popularity and the money and the skin.
Power.
Power.
Why do you think I do
This
this
is
job?
my other dog. I rescued him from the.
Dude.
Educate us so we can be better and hopefully help. in some
Did
way.
you realize I had somebody tell me a decade ago that I could get on disability like
I see
that?
the challenge still, but I mean, honestly, it looks like a full living.
My wife was trying to get on disability, and the lawyer said, I've got to ask you something. I said, sure. He said, why her and not you? I said, what do you mean? He said, just from I've been seeing you tell her and hearing things in your conversation,
I don't know what he is.
you're in rough shape. I said, yeah. I could get you disability like that. Her, it's a fight. Why is she the one applying? I said, because she doesn't want to try anymore.
Yeah, he's like literally that would make
I said, I'm not thrown off. I'm not saying you're bad. I'm just saying I have to have a reason to get up in the morning, or I won't get up. I have to have a reason to hurt. Because I hurt. I will, period. I don't know if y'all realize this, but I actually quit opiate pain meds cold turkey.
Because they are addicting, aren't they?
They are addictive.
Yeah.
They are, physically.
My
And
poor
they'll just
brother had
give
to
them
take
to you
them.
like candy.
He's very good. Like, I mean, I let
So
him
why
everywhere.
have I kept going after dying and being told I would never walk? Why have I forced myself to walk again?
Yeah.
Why do I drive 49 miles one way twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week? Why do I sit here
Yes.
when I've been here since 7:30 this morning?
No, I just wanted to have a good life.
When I could have left 10 minutes ago and I still got an hour's drive home?
Like, he'll ride it out.
Why?
Are you, like, educating us more?
He had a lot wrong with him. He was like,
Just make
Because-
one person make the world
acid
change.
stain across his
You know what's crazy?
But if I did, I told you, you don't really seem to believe that I'm a pessimist, am I right?
Oh no, I'm a pessimist. I don't believe in the good of the world. And people get on to me a lot about it. My mom's like, you need to be happy, you need to do this. And
I
I'm
see
like,
But the reason I'm not a bitter old man is because of you all. And I literally mean, you two are two of the more important ones in my group that keep me from that, because y'all are interested, you care, you're passionate, you want to learn. You may say, this is difficult, but I'm gonna try it.
yeah, I'm gonna struggle my way through it and figure
Yeah,
it out.
I can't help but admire that. I can't help but look and say, you know what, there's still some good people coming out of home. We're not over the hill yet. We're close, we're dancing on the edge of the cliff, but we're not over it yet. And it's just not in my nature to quit.
I feel
I should have given up on rock decades ago, but I refuse. I don't know why. I like you all.
You know what's
Bye,
crazy?
see you Thursday.
See you.
You know what's crazy?
I had a student tell me this morning, he said, thank you. I said, for what? He said, you just called me a success. I said, well, you are. And he said, but I've never had a teacher tell me that. And I thought, how on earth did you make it this far, trying as hard as you have and not hear it? And it just brings home to me, and I've still got a few miles left in the tank. I got a little bit of teaching opportunity left. Maybe I'll keep doing it. I hope y'all enjoy it. I hope it's been worthwhile.
I enjoy it.
But even if you don't enjoy it, I hope it's been useful, that you've actually got something from this class that you can take home and apply to your own life.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope you remember when you're my age. You won't remember my name. You won't remember anything from class. I hope you remember that you had a professor who gave a damn, who actually said, I like you guys as people. Despite his better judgment.
Some famous people around the world actually follow so much. Like it's crazy how much they use for.
Oh, I know, I've never heard of it on the plane.
I have no points. Just not like crazy as some famous people that should
This
not
is
play that.
why I'm up here saying, I've worked at the University of Tennessee. I came from Atlanta. I grew up there, I lived there until I went to college. But look at what I've achieved in life.
I mean, statistically speaking, I should have been according to most of my family, I should have been a drug addicted, teen pregnancy, like
Whoa.
crazy, like
And
failure,
that's why I told
stricken
you
copper wires.
what I told you before class about what I'm proud of you. You have to basically say that one semester's fair. So what? You learn more from failure than you ever do from success.
Yep.
And I would much rather have somebody that I know has faced adversity and overcome it than some leader kid who's 2 standards beyond the mean on the education scale and the intelligence scale and blasting through life getting straight A pluses, but has never once faced a real challenge.
Like those guys back there.
No.
I'm not picking on anybody specific, but I'm telling people, I kind of think that average intelligence IQ score of Vandy students, it's pretty much a guaranteed success. So why am I here instead of there?
Is
We wake up knowing that like I came from a small opioid addicted town and I actually want to become something and not be stuck there forever.
You know, and I am far prouder to you than anybody I ever had at that school. Ever. I think you should look people and proud of yourselves. And it means more sitting here in a community college classroom talking to people from the backgrounds who want to reach something. Keep it up.
Well, so is I not be here Thursday?
what's going on?
Apparently I'm supposed to be at a birthday party and I feel bad not going.
And she feels like her birthday party is more important than her education, despite what was just been said.
It might be this one time because I'm going out this way too. I don't usually miss class, so I was like maybe this one time.
You too.
I won't guilt myself about it.
You always do. There you go.
Watch her get her first car. She turns 16.
says this to me, if you have enough respect for me, if you're going to be honest with why you do this, you're not giving me something else. You're saying, this is something that's more important.
eating cake, watching her get her first car.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
See ya.